I'm making this video. This is the third video I've made about Apple in the last 20 months. In the last 8 iPhones I bought, 2 iPhone 7s and 3 iPhone 10s, they have been nothing but POSs. And I'm sure you know what that means. They don't work. They fight you every step of the way to replace them. It is not the same Apple that it was when Steve Jobs was there. And anybody who thinks it is, you're crazy. I used to be somebody that believed Apple could do no wrong. But the way I was treated at the Orlando store at the Mall of Millennia, a dog shouldn't have been treated like that. I'm working on iPhone 10. I'm working on the third one. I'll show you this. Now, I want you to see. I'll put it towards my face. It will not unlock. I know it's not the best view, but I'm doing it with... These are all messages that I've missed. It has been like this. See, it's pointing right at my face. And it will not unlock. It's been like this for over 90 hours. Apple, when it did this once before for almost 2 hours, told me to reset the phone. Do not install my password or Apple ID because they thought the keychain was corrupted. Well, that worked about 5 minutes. And then it went to its usual thing, which is it wouldn't work when you looked at the phone. Isn't that the whole purpose of facial recognition? You know, so you don't have to touch anything, any buttons, push anything, use a passcode to unlock it. Well, the only way you could get it to work was either shut it off or hit the cancel button that's below your set of digits for your passcode. That's the only way you could get it to unlock. A brilliant person from AT&T said, well, sir, you know you can just do away with the facial recognition and use passcode. Well, why in the world would I have bought an iPhone 10? I would have just bought an iPhone 7 or 8 and used a fingerprint reader. This is the type of people we deal with nowadays. Then I had a gentleman named Terrell who worked at Apple. Send me your receipt, your proof of purchase. What we'll do is we will take your phone back, take care of AT&T, and then you can go down and pick out whatever phone you want. I just got to get this approved by management. Well, this guy, doesn't know, I guess, how to read a clock because he doesn't call you when he's supposed to. He's either supposed to call you at 4 o'clock, he'll call you at 12 o'clock, or he'll call you at 9 o'clock at night. And if he misses a call, he'll say, well, I tried to get a hold of you. Well, you're not calling when you're supposed to call or when you tell a customer you're supposed to call. So he finally I called him, and he said, well, unfortunately, Apple can't do anything. You can take the phone to the Apple store, which, by the way, is about 85 miles away, which I've done 3 times, plus went to the Jacksonville store. I've driven close to 700 miles going to 4 Apple stores because of their bad products. That cost me money. Do you think that they're going to take care of me? I think you already know what the answer to that question is. They're not going to take care of anybody. They become a company that is worried about one thing: making money. That's it. That's it. Not taking care of their customers. Steve Jobs, one of his main things when he'd do a keynote was he always stressed he wanted to put the absolute best product they could make in your hands. So you wouldn't have to call Apple 15 times to try and get them to do something. Well, they've lost sight of that. All they want to do is become that first $1 trillion company. That's what their goal is. And to be damned with everybody else. 3 bad iPhones. Here's the thing somebody at AT&T said to me. She said, I looked up your account by your IMEI number, and I hope I said that right. But anyway, she said, you're still under warranty. She said, they should replace that phone. She says, I don't understand what's going on. Because that was Apple's next suggestion, to call AT&T. They told me 3 times. They said, you do realize when you buy something from them, in 14 days, that's how long you have to return the phone if you're not satisfied with it. I said, well, we're well past that. The phone was bought in December. About a month after that, the first phone goes bad. And about another month or 2 after that, the second phone goes bad. And now this one. When I got the third one, I didn't even use it. I left it in a drawer for 28 days. A stupid thing I did was when somebody offered me $700. It hadn't even been taken out of the plastic. Wasn't set up or anything. I should have took the $700, took $160 out of my pocket, and paid the phone off and been done with it. That was my stupidity right there. Because when iOS 12 came out, it kind of sold me on using the phone, because iOS 12 was really designed for the iPhone 10 and newer phones. Oh, and by the way, I'm sure most of you who have iPhone 10s have found out they're not making an iPhone 10 anymore. Now, ask yourself a question. When have you ever seen Apple announce 9 months after they made a product that they claim was going to change and revolutionize the cell phone industry, and then stop making it, or make an announcement 9 months after they made the phone that they weren't going to make it anymore? I can tell you why. Because they knew this phone had a problem. Here's where I hate to say that anybody's a liar. I don't like to use that word. But I've asked people at Apple's technical support when I call them, and when I've talked to a few people at the store, have you seen this problem before? Have you run across? No, I've never seen this before. That's an outright bold-faced lie. I Google searched Apple iPhone 10 facial recognition problem. I must have found 15 plus articles about problems that they've had with the facial recognition camera. From Forbes, 9 to 5 Mac, Mac Rumor, Business Insider. These are all reputable companies. This isn't the National Enquirer putting out this article. And I also found out that once they knew they had a problem, they sent a memo to their stores to tell them not to repair the phones, to replace them. Because they didn't know if it was a front camera or the back camera. The interesting thing is, in their statement, the back camera, if it's not working right, can cause the front camera not to work right. Which the front camera works your facial recognition, your emojis, and your selfies. So, when I went to the Mall of Millennia, a joke of a store run by a clown of a manager, I go there, a girl waits on me, she starts running the diagnostics on the phone. I said, what are you doing? I said, I have an appointment here to replace this phone. She says, well, I just want to check it out. She says, I don't find anything wrong with it. I say, if you would look over the notes, you would see this is not a problem that happens all the time. You can go 2-3 days, maybe a week, and it'll work fine, and then all of a sudden it won't work. I said, irregardless, the phone is supposed to be replaced. Well, I don't see anywhere in here that it's supposed to be replaced. Can you get Apple on the phone? So I call Apple up. It takes about 10 minutes for me to get Apple, a senior advisor, on the phone. So I get a senior advisor on the phone, and a couple of the guys that work at the Genius Bar were standing there, and they said, who are you looking for? Or what do you need help with? I said, I need the girl who was helping me. He says, oh, we'll go get her. They came back about 5 minutes later. Sir, she went home. I said, she went home? She didn't have the decency to come out here and say, listen, it's time for me to check out. It's time for me to go home. This person's now going to take over your case. She just went home and left me standing there like an idiot. So he goes, don't worry, sir. We'll call the manager over here. Manager comes over, and he has little man syndrome and was an extremely rude person. I go to hand him the phone because the senior advisor wants to talk to him and tell him to go ahead and replace the phone, after she also told me she didn't find anything in there. But after I told her the whole story, what would happen, she had found it. So she goes ahead and says, get the manager on the phone when he comes over there. So I go to hand the manager the phone. You'd have thought I was handing him a bottle of the Black Plague. He backs up and says, what are you doing? I said, this is a call from one of your Apple employees, a senior advisor. They want to talk to you. He says, I don't take phone calls unless they call me or I initiate the call. I said, well, she wants to talk to you about the phone, and she wants to tell you to replace the phone. He said, let me see your phone. I'll look at through the ID number, and he says, I can find that. So after all this big stink, he ends up talking to her anyway, and this is exactly what he said. I'm standing 2 feet away from him. Apparently, he didn't care. He says, what are we supposed to do? Every time this guy comes in here and he says a phone doesn't work, just keep giving him phones? Well, first off, yeah, if they don't work and they're under warranty, you're supposed to replace them or repair them. Apparently, he's not smart enough to realize that. So I stopped him right there. I said, hold on a minute. I said, hold on. I said, a senior advisor who had been working with an engineer and working with me for the last 2 or 3 days came to the conclusion that the front-facing camera was defective. And how they did that was, once I gave them all the information, they wanted me to either do a selfie or do emojis. So I said, I don't do selfies. She said, can you do an emoji for me? Yes. So I did an emoji. The first time it worked fine. Because she told me, just do an emoji and send it to anybody. The second time I did the emoji, I did use the monkey character. His mouth was moving 1,000 miles an hour, and his eyes were flickering like he was having a seizure. I tell her, I said, it's not working right. I said, his mouth is just steadily going. And they said that wasn't right. That something was wrong with that, and that they would call one of their engineers and talk to them about it. So she talks to the engineer, comes back and tells me that they're going to go ahead and replace the phone, and asked me how I wanted to do it. Well, of course, there's 3 options. You either pay for the phone and they send you one immediately. You mail it in 7 to 10 business days, you get the phone, or take it to a store and have it replaced. I chose to take it to the store because that would be the quickest and fastest way. But it still costs me money. You got to realize 165, 70-mile round trip is going to cost you gas, tolls if you stop and eat. I waste tempered glass screen protectors that can be $20, $30. I probably wasted 5 of them. And after all this nonsense, he goes ahead, he has somebody to go and get a phone. I said, don't even set it up. I said, don't take it out of the plastic, nothing. Give me the phone, because I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So I took it home, I stuck it in my drawer. It sat there for 27 or 28 days. The only reason I decided to use it, and should have sold it, that was my mistake, is because iOS 12 came out. I was going to get an iPhone 8, which I probably should have. The iPhone 10 and the iPhone 8 handle iOS 12 differently. You can do much more with the iPhone 10 with iOS 12 than you can the 8. It's really designed for the 10 and their future phones that are going to come out in September. So, dumb me went ahead and decided to open it up and use it, which I shouldn't have. I should have done like I said. When I was offered $700, I should have put the rest with it, ate the loss, and sold it. But I didn't. So now we have a phone sitting here, and it hasn't worked for 90 hours, over 90 hours. It's been in lock position. I've got a ton of calls, and the funny thing is, it'll ding and let you know that somebody's tried to call you or text you. I run a business, so there's no telling how many people I've missed, how many calls I've missed. The problem is, they want me to reset the phone again. If I do that, it's going to wipe out any text messages and all that. They're all going to be gone. So if any customers try to text me, I'll lose that. Any documents I have in there, seeing I can't back it up, I will lose that. So, which I tried to explain to Tyrell yesterday, who absolutely did nothing for me. And it's, to them, I found it's no big deal. Everything to them is, oh well, sorry about your problem. And AT&T isn't much better. Even though AT&T didn't make the phone, AT&T sells the phone. It's like you going to Best Buy and buying a TV. If it doesn't work, you take it back. They don't tell you to call Samsung. They return the phone, the TV, and give you a new one. Should be the same way with AT&T. I bought it from you. I bought 18 iPhones for my family over the last 10 years. Turn that light back on.
Can't see.
Excuse me. So I think AT&T should take or bear some responsibility too. Let's face it, AT&T and Apple are tied at the hip. For the longest time, they were the only ones that sold the iPhone. So I guarantee you they have a better working relationship with Apple than any other carrier does. But they tell you, no, we can't do anything. I said, so you think it's fair that I pay you X amount of money every month for a phone that doesn't work? It'd be like you buying a Mercedes and making $600 a month payments and was in the shop every 2 weeks. You'd get to a point where you said, well, wait a minute. You're not going to get another dime until you fix this. That should be the same way with this. And you know what? If I was a nasty, thieving person, I'd keep every one of their products, not return them, and I know how to make them work without their SIM cards. They would lose thousands of dollars in equipment, and on top of it, I spend about $5,500 a year through them. So they would lose that business. You would think, like I asked the lady, I said, you can't call or talk to Apple on my behalf and try and get something. Try and help me with something, you know. Take a few payments off, anything. Nope. AT&T is just like Apple. They love to use the word no. We can't do anything. We're not going to do anything. So, I'm not really happy with AT&T, and I haven't really figured out what I'm going to do. I'm almost at the point where I'm ready to take that phone and stick it in a box, take it back to the store I got it from, and just leave it there and say, here, do whatever you want with it. You know what? Even if I have to make the payments because I did sign a contract, I'll do it. But I don't need a phone that doesn't work right. And Apple is just playing, they're not playing softball. They're playing beyond hardball. And they don't care whether your phone works or not. And the lady at AT&T did ask me this, and she's right. She said, did they give you a reason why they're not going to replace the phone? No. Did you ask him? I said, yes. He said he wasn't at liberty to divulge that. He couldn't tell me why. It's just that his management said that they couldn't replace the phone. That I could use call their customer technical support line, or, like I said, waste more money and drive up to an Apple store. And if I reset the phone and take it back to new and go up there and it doesn't act up, their diagnostics equipment is not going to show a problem. Listen, I work on cars. I use diagnostic equipment. If somebody's complaining about a car and they bring it to me and a scanner shows nothing, no problems, well, guess what? I'm not going to be able to tell you what it is. And 3 days later, they'll be calling me up all mad while my car's acting up. Well, if it's not acting up while have it, I can't begin to diagnose what it is and fix it. It's the same thing with the phone. If it's not acting up when you take it there, they are not going to be able to figure out what's wrong with it. You know? And if the back-facing camera is bad, that's $550. And really, to cover your bases, you'd probably want to replace the front-facing camera. So by the time you got through ripping that phone apart and replacing both of those items, you might as well just give somebody a phone. Because I guarantee you're going to have $700-800 or more into repairs. That's why Apple told them to no longer repair the phones, to replace them. Don't you people find it awful funny? Have you ever seen Apple make a product for only one cycle and then discontinue it? Maybe some of you older Apple fans that have been around and been using them a lot longer than I have seen that. But I've never seen that, particularly since they came out with an iPhone. Even the iPhone SE, they got a 3 or 4 year run out of it. This phone, 9 months after it's made, they announced we're not going to make it anymore. I also read another interesting article that they said there was 2 reasons that the phone came out late and they didn't have as many phones as they usually have when they debut a phone. As they said, because Apple didn't give them enough time to get the facial recognition camera part to work correctly. They were rushing them. They said they usually get more time, particularly when they're trying to do something that somebody else hasn't done, or to, put it in a mobile device. So they rushed this product out and still came out late, made way less than they usually do for their their top grade phone. And the reason why this phone doesn't work right is because, just like all the new phones that are coming out today, it's a mad rush to get them out. Samsung, I think their last phone, the 9, it was less than a full year before they brought it out. What is it going to be? 5 or 6 months and they'll have another phone? And another thing, for people like us that go paycheck to paycheck or don't make a ton of money, upgrading every year really doesn't make sense. But that's what Apple wants you to do. That's what Samsung wants you to do. They want you to upgrade. So they make a phone every year. It gets people tempted like me. Oh, well, I got to have the latest and greatest thing. So you go and do the stupid thing instead of holding on to your phone that works perfectly fine to begin with. So that I can take the blame for that. There's a few things in here I can take the blame for. But I know one thing. This phone still has almost 6 months of warranty left on it. About 5.5 months of warranty. I don't care if they have to replace it 10 times. Your policy states either repair or replace the phone. It doesn't say call. It doesn't say drive 100 miles to a store. And then maybe, if it just happens to be acting up at that time, we'll go ahead and do something. It's, oh well, you got to take your chances. If you drive up there and it's not acting up and they deem that it's fine, well, then you know what? You're stuck with it. So what'll happen is you'll go there, like in my case, drive up there. If they can't get the phone to act up or if they don't see anything diagnostics-wise, you'll go home 2 or 3 days later. Trust me, because I've been through this for the last 6 months, and I've been through it with 3 phones. In 2, 3, 4 days, a week at the most, it will guarantee you it will start to act up. And when it does, what are you going to do then? You certainly can't hop in your car and drive 2 blocks down the road because, like I said, I'm 80 plus miles away from. I'm at 80 miles one way, 110 miles the other way. North. 80 miles south to an Apple store. As far as I'm concerned, they should reimburse me for the money I've wasted driving to their stores. I should have got a call from the manager and got an apology. Oh, and by the way, when I left that store, I pulled over, stopped, called, made a complaint. The next morning, somebody from customer relations wanted to know what happened, apologized to me 10 times, said, I know this isn't going to do anything for the way you were treated, but we're going to let our upper management know, and then they will contact that store. Big deal. And first of all, how do I know they even did that? They should have had the manager call me and apologize to me for the way he treated me. Second of all, it was less than 2 weeks later, I get a call from customers relations again, wanting to know what happened at that store. I said, I've already told somebody. Well, he says, I want to know what happened. So 2 people from customer relations called to find out what happened. That would kind of make me think that they weren't very happy about that. So you would think with all the crap that I went through, the way I was treated, the money I've wasted driving up there, wasted on tempered glass screen protectors I have to peel off and throw away and go get new ones, the money I've wasted, probably $300 or more, you would think those things alone, they wouldn't hesitate to replace this phone. Nope, not going to do it. And like I said, there is a reason that they stopped making this phone. They can give you all the BS they want. Like I said, Google search facial recognition problem on iPhone 10, and you will just see article after article after article. And like I said, a memo from Apple's headquarters itself to replace, not repair the phone. So if you have a problem, they call up and they say they don't know what it is or they haven't heard of this, they're lying to you. I wrote a long letter to Tim Cook. Tim Cook's not going to answer that letter. Somebody will call me from Apple. I've done it before. And you'll either get somebody that'll halfway try and work with you, or you'll get somebody rude like I got one time and said, "Sir, you really shouldn't be writing to Tim Cook or Phil Schiller." Well, then why do they have their email addresses out there if they don't want people writing to them? I'll do whatever I want. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. Seeing they're not going to help me, I'm going to use the Better Business Bureau, the Consumer Affairs, the Attorney General's Office, which I can file complaints with all three of them. You have to do it in your state and the state that Apple's in. And I'll find anybody else that I can file a complaint against. I'll use YouTube, Facebook, every form of social media I can to let people know how I was treated. And here's the thing about it is, if it costs them a couple customers, it costs them a couple $1,000s from people buying phones, you know what? I've won a little bit. Maybe not much. It hasn't replaced the phone. It's not going to. But you know what? Good. That's what you deserve. You need to go back to the way Steve Jobs ran that company. A product didn't leave the company until it was absolutely ready to go to the public. Not to rush it out, not to send it out, not to make a phone and try and get it out before a year and get half-baked iOSs. iOS 11 was the most horrid iOS system Apple ever came out with. I have iOS 12 on my wife's phone, which I'm using right now, which is an 8. In beta form, it's 1,000 times better than iOS 11 was. And don't even get me started on High Sierra. That was the biggest piece of garbage they ever made. My Mac would freeze up all the time. You get the spinning beach ball, everything. I downloaded Mojave. No, not one bit of problems. See, this is what happens when you take your time and you listen to your customers and you do things right, which you have capable engineers to do. I mean, you poach engineers from all over along with your engineers, so you have the people smart enough to do this, but you want to rush it out. You know why? Because you want to make that money. That $1 trillion company to say it and get out there and brag, we're the first $1 trillion company. That's what you're trying to do. And you know who's paying the price? People like me. The guy who works every day, 10, 11 hours a day, bust his ass so he can pay for your products. And in the end, you treat them like dirt. I'm not through with you, and I'm not through with AT&T. I'm going to file a complaint against them. And if AT&T gets me mad enough, and I know you may not think it's right, probably a lot of you won't, I'll keep every single one of their products, and they won't get another dime from me. Not another dime. And I bet you, then somebody from AT&T will call me up and say, "Sir, what can we do to fix this problem?" That's probably what I have to do. You ever heard of this, her term? The saying, drastic problems cause, you have to have drastic solutions for drastic problems. That's what you have to do. You have to do drastic things to get them to get their attention so that they will say, okay, this guy isn't playing around. He's serious. He wants us to do something. You got to do what you got to do, It's not what I want to do. I don't want to file a complaint against them. You think I want to be on the phone with them? I can't count the hours. In the last 20 months, I've had 2 bad iPhone 7s. Took 6 months to replace them. 6 months. I had to buy another phone out of my pocket, give it to my daughters because hers wouldn't work. She used that phone for a month. It worked fine. Hers didn't work right 2 weeks after she had it. And Apple refused to do anything. So when I told them, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, the only difference between the 2 phones is this is the red edition that you just came out with about a week ago. The other one's jet black. That's the only difference, the color. I said, she has no problem with this phone. And matter of fact, like I tried to tell you when she had an iPhone 6, she didn't have any problem. When she would drive a couple miles out of town, she would lose all reception and Wi-Fi. She drove on a rural area. That's my child. You imagine a 20, 21-year-old girl walking home if she broke down on a dark, deserted road with all these friggin' weirdos out there? I bought her an expensive phone so she could have a reliable phone to call. So, when I gave her that phone and she used it for a month and had no problems with it, I called the same person who told me they weren't going to do anything. Then he changed his tune. He then connected me with 2 engineers, one for my phone and one for hers. The engineers asked me, have you reset the phone? I said, yeah, 6 times. He said, 6 times for both of them? I said, no, 6 times a piece. He said, who in the world told you to do that? I said, your senior advisors. He said, listen, they might be good at their job. He says, but I know what I'm doing. They don't have a clue what goes into the engineering part of Apple. He says, we have you reset the phone twice. If the phone doesn't work after the second reset, then there's a hardware problem. He said, those phones should have been replaced. He says, how long has this been going on? I said, 6 months. He said, you've been dealing with this for 6 months? I said, yes, and I don't even want to tell you how many times I've called and wrote. He said, who are you dealing with? I said, the guy's name is Pete Doss. He said, do you have his number? I gave it to him. He says, expect a call from him. About 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, he calls me. He says, I've called the store in Orlando. It's set up. Just go in there and take the phones, and they will replace them. But if I hadn't went out and bought another phone to prove those morons wrong, to prove that it wasn't a software issue, it was a hardware issue, I'd still have those 2 POSs. Apple doesn't care about you. They can get out there with all their, well, we love education, we love children, we love to do this, we love to do that. No, what you love to do is stuff your pockets with money. That's what you love to do. Yes, I know you're in business to make money. You wouldn't have a business. But you know what? If you have to make a little less to make sure your customers get a better product, then that's what your job should be. That's what your duty should be. It shouldn't be to make a half-baked product and a half-baked iOS and put it out on the public, and then when they have problems, fight them every step of the way. I never, ever thought I would feel this way about Apple. You know what? You don't have to worry about losing me as a customer. But you should be more worried about that you've lost my respect. And when a person doesn't have a respect for an individual or a company, that's way worse than losing a customer. You know what? Because a customer might leave you, they still might like your product. They may leave because they want to try something different. But when somebody has no respect for you because of the way you treat them, that's something that's hard, if ever, to get back. Now, I know I've been going on for about 40 minutes, but I could probably go on for another 40 minutes. I've been treated rudely at 2 Apple stores. I've been treated rudely on the phone. I have gotten nothing done, and I will keep writing and sending complaints to them until eventually they may have a lawyer tell me to cease and desist. But I'm not just going to let this stand still, and neither should you. If you have a problem with them, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that's had problems with them that just felt like pulling their hair out of their head, don't let them get away with it. What people should do if they have iPhone 10s that don't work and they are giving them a hard time about replacing them, you should all get together and start a class action lawsuit against them. It seems like that's one thing that does get their attention. You shouldn't treat people like dirt and then tell them, oh, by the way, can you spend $1,100 on a phone? I remember when I had a fit of paying $350 or $375 for my first iPhone. And now this one with $1,073. I was dumb for spending that kind of money. You know, who would have ever thought we'd be paying $1,000? You could buy a nice computer for $1,000, $1,100. You know, we're talking a phone, and then you're going to fight the customer over replacing it? This isn't a $50 Walmart flip phone. You know, this is your top of the end phone. The end all to be all phones. Oh, by the way, that you're not going to make anymore. So it must not have been the end all to be all phones. I never ever thought that I'd even think about going to Android. Now I know there's Apple people out there that are probably saying no matter what, they never go to Android. But you know something? I run a business. I need to text. I need to call my customers. I need to look up parts, go to websites, salvage yards, stuff like that because I'm a mechanic. And if I can't use my phone when I need to use it, what good is it? Like I said, there's no telling how many calls, how many texts I miss from customers because now it stacks them and there's 6 of one, 3 of another, 2 of another. So you know what? I probably missed 20 texts and calls. So what I have to do is call every single customer, which I've called some, and call every single customer, which some of them I haven't been able to get a hold of because, you know, it's summertime, weekend, they may not be home. They may not be answering their phone. So I have to call them and let them know, hey, my regular phone doesn't work. You'll have to call my wife. And by the way, my wife isn't happy because I'm using her phone that I bought her new at the same time. So she doesn't have her own phone most of the time. I do. That's not right. So I'm using hers while my $1,000, $1,100 paperweight sitting over there doesn't work. So, you know, I know the pictures that I sent weren't the greatest because trying to get the right angle and everything, but trust me, it was 6 o'clock Wednesday night. Around that time, give or take a few minutes, is when it stopped where it would not unlock. I hooked the charger up to it to make sure the battery stayed because I wanted to see how long it would do this. We are now Saturday, 10 minutes, almost 10 minutes to 12 Eastern time, and it still will not unlock. So you're telling me that's normal, Apple? Boy, if Steve Jobs was only alive today, he's probably rolling over in his grave. You get rid of the headphone jack. You get rid of the MagSafe, which is one of the smartest things you ever designed. So people don't kick over their $2,000 iMac their MacBook Pro on the ground there, and you do away with the majority of the ports on there. So you got to go out and spend $200 on a bunch of dongles, and it looks like a Frankenstein there with all those cords hanging out of it. You know, you've done things that have improved some things, but you've also done things that I don't think a sixth grader would have done. Would have had a more common sense not to do. You know, you've done things that just don't make sense. You've taken away things that people use all the time. And you say, well, we're taking away the headphone jack for courage. You know what courage is? Courage is running into a burning building and saving somebody. Courage isn't getting rid of the headphone jack. That's the most ridiculous statement I ever heard. Was it courage to get rid of the MagSafe cord? So now if you happen to pull on that cord or accidentally or something like that or trip over it and your Mac goes crashing and hits the floor, well, it wouldn't have done that if you had left the cord on there. For a company that so claims to be so smart and ahead of everybody, you've done some really dumb things. I have to get off because I have high blood pressure and I can feel a headache coming on. This is beyond ridiculous, bad. Apple is just, I don't know what to even think of them anymore. I really don't. You know. But I'm going to keep on fighting. Either I'll get something done, or I'll take that phone, like I said, and I'll take it back. I'll make the payments, because you know what? I said I'd probably keep their products and not pay them. That's not the right thing to do. Make the payments. Give them the phone back. Phone is no use of me if it doesn't work, or if it works every other day. What good is it? And they're not going to replace it or repair it. Here, have it. I'll make those $33 or $34 a month payments. But I will choose wisely the next time before I buy a phone. Or what I might do is go out and buy a cheap old iPhone that you didn't have any problems with. Like an iPhone 4 or 5. I just need a phone that works. I've stressed that to you a million times. So, you and AT&T are going to get bombarded with letters from government agencies that are going to work on my behalf. And you know the bad thing about that is, even if you don't agree to do anything, those go out after so many days and they become public record. So if somebody wants to look your company up and they look over my complaint or anybody else's complaint about you, they might think twice about buying your product. So that's something you can't stop. So, to all you Apple people out there that have had bad products, you know what I'm talking about, and have had to fight with them. I remember years ago, you never had to fight with them. They would force replace an item. Get it to you, overnight your box, force replace it. In less than 3 days, you'd have another device. Or if you had to drive as far as I did, I've had the manager say, "Hey, go over there and pick yourself out a $50 case." Said, "You drove all this way." Not anymore. They've tightened the reins so tight, they're choking. And even a couple of the carriers I talked to said, Apple has the tightest restraints on things we can do as far as warranty, or in fact, it is no warranty. You just got to give them the phone back and basically say, "I don't want it," and then start over again and get another one. Because they don't repair, they won't let them repair them. Apple wants to be totally 100% in control of everything. So, good luck with that. And if you think you've heard the last of me, nope, you're wrong. To all the Apple people out there that have gone through the same crap I have, I feel bad for you. But you should not let them get away with it.
And it's 12 o'clock.
Just keep on and don't let them get away with it.